Hello everyone, this flow includes more advanced stretches for hip flexibility and mobility, as well as stretches for the muscles of the inner thigh that are essential to gain flexibility for middle splits. So near the end of this video, we will be focusing specifically on middle splits. I would recommend that you warm up before beginning this flow, just getting the body nice and warm, the muscles warm before we begin. If you are new to yoga or flexibility in general, I would recommend another flow for you. So, that aside, let's go ahead and begin in a child's pose. Making this a wide-kneed child's pose, bringing the knees wide to either side of your rib cage and the big toes to touch behind you. Lift slightly, walking the hands over to your left side. And lifting through center all the way over to your right side. Lifting your chest and drawing your hands back to center, activating the stretch, pressing through the palms, sending the hips back towards the heels. Next, inhale, hinging at the hips, tucking the toes and sending the hips high for down dog. Stepping out a couple times left to right, clarifying your position. Rising high on the toes and pressing back down towards the heels. One more rise high. And exhale, press the heels down a little closer. Right leg lifts behind you. Pulling knee into chest, hinging forward so the shoulders come right over the wrists, and drawing a large circle with your knee, taking some rolls in the hip. So we are rolling the hip, beginning to warm up the hip joint. We are also getting some core work here if you haven't noticed already. Pulling the knee in, staying strong through the shoulders as well. And tall. Next time you're back, go ahead and hold there. And take some little circles in the hip. So keeping your shoulders and hips in the down dog position, just taking a circle with the knee. And allowing the leg to hang there in a three-legged dog. We'll begin to take small circles in the opposite direction. So leading towards the outside of your body first, then swooping in. Beginning to make the movements larger, drawing the knee up towards the shoulder, to the midline of the body, then sending the knee back up high. You may be feeling some work in your shoulders by now. That's a good thing. Sending the leg up high behind you and bringing it down to meet the left. Dropping both knees to the mat, taking your wide knees child's pose once again, giving the shoulders a little rest before we begin the other side. If you like an extra release, go ahead and bring the palms to touch and allow them to relax along the back of your head or neck. Let's go ahead and begin on the other side, hinging up and finding down dog. This time the left leg will go high behind you. Bending the knee and pulling it straight into your chest and up and out to the side. Continue these circles here, drawing as big of a circle as you can. Really moving with intention, opening up the hip. Holding the hip high and taking some smaller circles at the top, staying strong through the shoulders, pressing through the palms. Whole body is active here. You can go ahead and hold that leg where it is in a three-legged dog, stacking the hips on top of one another. Pressing an equal amount through either hand, trying not to dip to one side. And we'll begin those small circles in the other direction, coming towards the outside of your body first and then back towards center. Making the circles bigger, engaging the core. Sending the left leg up high and down to meet your right foot, taking a child's pose once again, sinking back into the hips. Giving a little love to our shoulders. Let's lift our chest, weaving the right arm under. The right shoulder comes down as well as the right ear. Lifting the chest and switching sides. Lifting to center, pressing the hips back towards the heels once again. Pressing through down dog and walking the feet up to meet the hands. Taking a forward fold at the top of your mat. Holding onto opposite elbows, allowing a release through the neck and the head, all the way down the spine. Releasing the hands towards the floor and folding a little bit further if you'd like, maybe straightening the legs, getting a stretch through our hamstrings here. Bring the hands to the mat and toe heeling the feet wide and slightly turned out, lowering your seat down for Malasana Yogi Squat. We'll have a little variation on Malasana here to get deeper into the hips. Bringing the hands a little wider than shoulder width, about the edge of your mat, and leaning forward. So our knees or our inner thighs will be resting on the backs of our arms. Releasing shortly and pressing right back into it. Using your elbows to press your knees wide to either side. You should feel a large hip stretch here. Hinging forward, breathing deeply. And release. One more, hinge forward, hold here, finding length through the spine as much as you can. And releasing. Hands come to heart center for Malasana. Using the elbows, press the hands out to either side. Right hand drops, left arm rises, taking some circles in the shoulder. Allowing the left hand to come behind the back for half bind. Maybe reaching the fingers to touch for full bind. If you can find full bind, using the resistance of your arms to pull your chest open. And returning to center, switching sides, right arm lifts tall, taking those circles. Dropping the right arm for half bind or full bind. Releasing and returning to center, sending the hips high. Toe heeling the feet out a little bit wider for a wide-legged forward fold. Inhaling up halfway and exhaling, folding a little bit deeper. Always make it your goal to find length through the spine first before folding deeper. Inhale and lift the chest slightly. Exhale and find your edge. Seeing if you can rotate the hips outward to go a little bit deeper. Maybe holding around the backs of your legs to pull your head closer towards the floor. Inhale and lift the chest. Tucking the heels in a little bit more, sinking into the hips. The knees come to about 90. Hands or elbows come to either knee and bending into one side, pressing the knees actively open with either hand. Inhale and center, and switch. Through center, and switch. One more switch. Finding center, straightening out the legs once again, taking a wide-legged forward fold to release. And toe heeling the feet back into a forward fold. Allowing the head and neck to hang long. Keeping the right foot forward, stepping the left back into a low lunge. Sinking down here, bringing the hands to the center and toe heeling the foot out wide to the side of your body. Dropping the back knee down and lifting it up. Dropping and lifting. Dropping and lifting. Dropping and lifting, engaging the thigh. Turning the right foot out towards your right side and sinking the left hip low towards the mat. Your hip may not come all the way to the mat, and that's totally okay. If you'd like to add your right hand into the stretch, like I'm showing here, go for it. Returning to center, toe heeling the foot in and hopping the left foot up to meet the right. We'll go ahead and get started on the other side. So stepping the right foot back, clarifying your low lunge position here, toe heeling your left foot out slightly to the left. Bending the back knee and dropping it down. Engaging and lifting. Lowering and lifting. Should feel this in the hip flexor. Lowering and lifting. Lowering and toe heeling the left foot out to the left, lowering the right hip towards the mat. Using the left arm to help the stretch if you like. Slowly returning to center, toe heeling the foot in and hopping the right foot up to meet the left in a forward fold. Dropping the seat down towards the mat and extending the legs wide in a straddle. The arms come behind you, so you're in a bit of a reclined position. Pressing the chest out forward, finding a slight arch in the back. And negating that, drawing the chin to chest, pulling the belly button in. Pressing out and rounding down. So as you press up, sending the pelvis back behind you, as you round down, scooping it in, open up and finding yourself up to seated tall here, finding a bit of a balance. Maybe hands come to heart center or rest in front of you on the mat. Deepening into the straddle stretch. And I want you to bring attention to the way your toes are pointed. Trying to keep them pointed slightly outwards or towards the ceiling, trying not to allow an inward rotation. So opening up towards the front and rounding towards the back. Opening up and rounding. Go ahead and continue with these or lower deeper into the stretch. Bringing the elbows or the chest towards the mat. Walking the hands slightly to the left side. And to the right. Finding center and lowering even more into the stretch. Taking your time here, breathing deeply and lifting up tall. Realigning your position here if your legs were starting to creep out a little too far. Hands come across the chest or above the head. Some strengthening exercises here, so feel free to watch first before you follow along. Lowering down as far as you can, lifting up. Lowering and lifting, engaging the back muscles. Here we're building strength using those hip muscles that are so important for middle splits. So as we're using them, we're warming them up, which will make it easier to sink into our next stretches. This should be some hard work. So lowering and lifting. Lowering and lifting. Releasing the hands, coming behind you, taking a big round out here. Just releasing before we begin our next exercise. Hands reach out and over first and land in front of you, walking the hands over to the left side and swooping through center to the right. So don't feel like you have to follow along exactly with me here. Moving at your own pace, sweeping left to right, warming up a little bit through the hips, sweeping out, increasing your pace as you go along, engaging the muscles of your legs and your hips to hold you strong. So what I want you to think about here is pressing your heels down into your mat. That's what's keeping you lifted and lifting your chest as well. Finding center and then exhale, find your deepest stretch yet in this wide-legged straddle. Inhaling back to seated tall. Taking some rolls in the shoulder here. And pulling the knees back into center. Feet come wide on the mat as you open up forward and round out back. Open forward and round out back. Forward and back. So sitting up tall, finding your way onto all fours, we're going to work towards a frog stretch. So finding all fours first and then beginning to bring the knees a little bit wider. Staying where you feel a slight stretch along the muscles of the inner thighs, and then walking the knees wider and wider as you gain flexibility. This is a very intense stretch, so take your time to breathe here. If it feels good to take some slight rocks forward and back, I recommend that. I also want you to think about the angles between your knees and your hips and your torso. So everything should be at 90 degrees. If I were to look at you from above, they would all be 90-degree angles. Even flexing at the ankles to protect those. So as you're stretching your frog, I'll go ahead and show you some of my favorite ways to improve flexibility in frog. A lot of times in this type of stretch, as well as middle splits, we'll find a stuck point where the hips are just a little bit lifted and those last few inches to the floor can be difficult to gain. So some things that I have figured out that work for me and I recommend you trying for you is actually lifting your chest up. Don't be so focused on trying to get your chest to the floor. When you lift your chest, you're able to press through your hands and press your hips back down towards the mat. Once you find yourself gaining more flexibility in your frog, you can play around with lifting and lowering your chest, applying pressure through the hands. Maybe even if you have a wall in front of you to press against, that can be a big stretch. I recommend trying that. Play around with it on your own time. For now, we'll go ahead and lift ourselves slowly, finding a child's pose before we begin working for our middle splits. So preparing for middle splits, sitting up nice and tall, bring your legs as wide as possible. Using our hands to scoot our hips more and more forward. And to begin here, I want to bring some attention to rotation of the hips by rotating the toes in forward and out back. So as opposed to our wide-legged straddle stretch where we want to keep our toes pointed up or out, for middle splits, it's totally okay and recommended to have the toes fall inward. As you get closer to your middle splits, the space between your pelvis and the floor will decrease, and it will get a lot more comfortable to hold. Most of the work here and the tension is getting into the middle splits. Once you're flat to the floor, it isn't so much work because you don't have your whole weight of your body pressing down against you. Those last few inches to the floor can be the most difficult to get. As I just mentioned in frog, it's much the same stretch. So if you're stretching frog and you're getting closer, you'll likely be very close to your middle splits. So when you're able to get your legs wide enough and you're decently comfortable in middle splits, you'll be able to roll into them as I did here. Don't worry if that seems far away now. I promise with consistent stretching, you will be able to get there. I did it, so you guys can too. And you may be noticing by now that stretches for middle splits are very similar to frog. They're very similar stretches on the same muscles. The only difference is that the legs are extended. So as I'm showing from the side, working on lifting the chest and lowering down can be very beneficial to gain those last few inches to the floor. Actively pressing the chest high, pressing with the hands to get the hips to come flat down to the mat. Eventually lowering, really taking your time and breathing. One more big breath in. And let it go. Slowly coming up. Rolling the shoulders and pulling the knees in together. You may need some help of your hands after stretching for so long. Extending the legs out long, shaking them out. And we'll go ahead and close off this video on our backs. So go ahead and lower down onto your back, bringing your knees into your chest. Giving your knees a big hug in, maybe rocking a little left to right. Thank you for flowing and stretching with me today. I hope you all enjoyed and got a good stretch. If you are working towards your middle splits, good luck. Consistency is key with stretching. Keep doing these and be patient with your body. Namaste.